What is up, friends? I'm between sets and a workout. Had to run and get my phone camera just to mention some things I'm thinking about because I like the way I was phrasing it to myself in my head. I'm learning, I got my sunscreen. I'm just all dolled up for the camera as usual. I'm learning how to pronate. In particular, I'm teaching my left foot how to constructively pronate. And you're like, why would you want to do that? Aren't we not supposed to pronate? Isn't that like the bane of all of our foot pain existence? No. Pronation is like inflammation. That's what I just thought of. I'm really proud of that comparison. In the sense that we need inflammation. It's absolutely responsible for all kinds of different ways that the body heals itself and responds to insult and injury, right? Acute inflammation to triage a situation is life-saving. But chronic, uncontrolled inflammation is very dangerous. Same with pronation. Pronation is required for each step to absorb ground impact forces, our body weight, and you can actually check out, there's some cool like running technique videos, like running coaches, and they will do, I'm just like so obsessed with the zinc oxide, really good video breakdown on form. And in particular, it's a video I'm thinking of a world champion marathon runner, and he is in slow motion massively pronating. Like, it looks dangerous. It looks like he's dislocating his ankle, and just like his medial ankle bone is just crashing down to the ground with each run. Granted, he's at the front of this race. He's about to do a 2:15 marathon. It's not hurting him. His body has adapted. His body is ready to unload all of that ground impact and then spiral back up himself because he's got the connective tissue and the muscular strength and the alignment that it is working for him. It's those of us who haven't been running all our lives, or we've deconstructed our bodies, we've hurt our bodies in some ways, that we then don't have the connective tissue and the muscular strength to control our pronation. And that's when it becomes a problem. And then, even though it's step at a time, I'm not like, well, that's actually not true. Some of us are standing in a chronically pronated state. We're just standing and our ankles are collapsed in. There's adult acquired flat foot. Okay? So the point is that like everything in the body, pronation is just one side of an exchange that's going on across the system. So while pronation is absorbing those ground forces and decelerating your body, supination and the spiral up, right? If pronation is like the spiral down towards the ground, supination is a spiral up. And it is in fact a spiral. We're just seeing the bottom portion of it, what looks like collapse, but that is the end whip of a spiral down that also spirals up all the way to your glutes, and then guess what? Across your core and to your ribs. See your oblique anterior and posterior slings. I think that's what it's, yeah. Check out your POS and your AOS to see the slings of how that rotational force actually comes all the way up to your shoulders and arms. It's amazing. And I say that because it has to work in conversation, and the upward drive of that supination spiral back up the body is waiting for its cue from the pronation. But if the pronation is always collapsed and uncontrolled, then there's never the reverb, right? There's never the bounce back. So we're undermining both systems in the body by either having too much of one or eliminating it. Which brings me to my situation, is that I was overly controlling the pronation on that foot out of an abundance of caution and the best intentions. But in overcorrecting it, I was undermining the ability of that whole hip and leg to work the way it's supposed to. And it was interesting because I was building up all of the other muscle systems in the spiral chain. Like, everything knew its part on its own, but I wasn't letting them play together. I wasn't letting them collaborate, because every time they try to go and have fun, I would be like, stop right there. Stop right there at the end of the pronation spiral. And so everything was in place. So that brings me to now what I'm exploring, having finally been like, I think I'm making a mistake. I think I need to let the leash off a little. Let the kids play. They're fine. They're safe, right? I'm not going to hurt myself experimenting with allowing some extra pronation that doesn't hurt at all. All right, it does not hurt. If it starts to hurt, I'll have to back off. But right now, feels really good. And in fact, I'm being rewarded by the other muscles in my body, like my hips and my hamstrings and my lower abs on that side. I mean, I could list off pieces that I'm thinking of in the group that wants to play together that are all responding like, oh, finally, we have a game. We have a full team, right? We want to play. So it's really, I'm really excited about it. The other thing that made me think, like a comparator, is that a word? Imagery is like a slingshot, okay? It's really hard to understand how the body works efficiently if you're just thinking about it in muscles. We have to think about it with connective tissue. The connective tissue and the muscle systems cross joints. And almost every joint in the body is looking for what's commonly known as like agonist-antagonist systems across the joints. Super outdated, kind of defunct and overly simplified way of looking at it, to be really honest. But there is, at least to the extent that there's muscles that pull one way and muscles that pull the other. Muscles that yield one way and muscles that yield in the other. But they play together. And as soon as one of those muscles is not pulling its weight, then you get instability at that joint. And then the other muscle that is ready to play, is all suited up, can't play because it doesn't have anything to pull against. And that reminds me of the pronation supination, although we're not talking about like a linear muscular system across a single joint. We're talking about a complex, but it's the same idea that you have one system that sets up the baton pass for the other system, and how one thing can really unravel the whole system. And I bring that up because so many of us, like myself, for 30-something years was wearing rigid, overly corrective shoes, orthotics, etc. And I completely undermined an entire half of that system that I'm now relearning to control on my own, to allow both sides of the equation to play together, right? The shock absorption and the force propulsion system, we call it, right? The supination, drive, propulsion, power generation, and the pronation, shock absorption, unloading side of the mechanism. You can think of it again like a slingshot, in that you don't want a slingshot with like the rubber band is just so taut you can't even get any real pull. It might be a really strong rubber band, but it's a defective slingshot because you can't use it. It's too tight. What if it's too loose? It's too stretchy. You have no recoil, right? That happens in the body all the time. But another way to think about it is what happens if you're someone who's used that slingshot before. There's birds up in the trees in front of me. It's just an image. I would never. You go to pull the slingshot and it slips off the stick, right? That is another thing that your body learns. And I know I'm kind of off the rails on this, but I was thinking about it in these terms of there's joint pairings muscular and fascial system pairings across joints that help the body move with efficiency. And each one is a tug of war. It has to work in symbiosis. There has to be mutually reinforcing, mutually buttressing tension. I can only pull as hard as you can resist, and vice versa. It's actually the eccentrics in the eccentrics workout I teach, and it's how the body moves athletically. If you're not doing that and you're only pulling one way across your joints, because perfect example is, right, you've stopped your body from being able to pronate, or you're overly pronating. There's, again, not a perfect image, but the idea is we also have situations where our body gets punished for a lack of stability because someone wins that tug of war. I pull really hard, you're not pulling. Right, now we have like a Red Rover situation, and I've pulled the rubber band off the slingshot. Just totally, right. I've pulled the rubber band off the slingshot. The body remembers that. And it's like, I'm not going to let you pull anymore because you've created injury. You just tore a hamstring or whatever, right? You just pulled a groin muscle. You just threw your back out, right? Because there's tug of war, symbiosis, we're good. Something happens in the body where one side of the equation can no longer pull its weight or isn't pulling its weight. The other side is like, well, I'm still pulling. I'm still in the game. Or it doesn't know you've stopped pulling. I don't know you've stopped pulling. I don't know you stopped to tie your shoes. I keep pulling. Rubber band pulls off the joint. Creation of injury. And now you're in a downward spiral, right? Because muscles can only pull. I can't push. So knowing that you can't pull on your side of the joint, I can't help you and push. All I can do is pull. So this has been a completely bananas work. I'm going to push stop. I'm not going to delete this. I'm going to post it with caveats that it's ridiculous. And I'm going to go back to my workout. I didn't get a lot of sleep. I haven't gotten much sleep in the past couple days. I'm all good, but my brain is not functioning very well. But my body is, so I'm going to go continue this workout. And note to self, you had the energy for the workout, not for the video. That's okay. I love you guys. I hope this is useful. To be really honest, for as much as this has been off the rails, there's some gems of observations in here that if you have a creative mind that can meet me on this level, I think it'll speak to you. And I hope it helps you think about your body and that we learn in this together.